Central Bucks West when Coach Pettin Sr. stepped down? Were they going to lose anything along the way? Smart choice by the school district to take a assistant coach, Mike Carey, who was with Pettin Sr. for 20 years, and just install him into that role. Jed, you've seen enough of them and heard enough of them. They haven't really skipped a beat. They are an incredibly dangerous team. Joe Heyer will tell you, they can attack you so many ways they could spin a defense's head right now.
All right. Do we have Joe Heyer? And I believe we're back on radio at this point in time. And also Doyle Dietz. Doyle, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. Good to hear from you.
All right. And Joe Heyer, you're there, right?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Okay. Thanks for being with us. And we got Jeff Nolan with Nauticom here for one more window as well. Doyle, let's start with you. Mount Carmel, Southern Columbia. Is this game on the, is this state championship weekend on their pocket schedules?
You know, it was like when I was a kid, I used to think the World Series was part of the Yankee schedule. And I think Southern Columbia and Mount Carmel, that's the way those two football programs look at it. Once they make the District 4 playoffs, it's usually a case of both teams going in as a favorite, and once you win your district, like I said, we have to look at these playoffs. You don't look at the whole season. It's can they make the district playoffs? Once they make the district playoffs, they're going to be favored, and then it's win 2 games to get to Hershey.
What's the status of Nate Chicatano, the transfer from Shamokin? We understand a sprained ankle. Is he a go, or is that a game-time decision from your knowledge?
Oh, he'll play.
It's
he'll play.
Okay.
Feel him out there.
Don't even worry about that.
We'll see. He's number 41. Okay. Let's go to Joe Heyer a little bit. Let's talk about this monster game on Saturday, which will be at 5 o'clock on the Pennsylvania Cable Network. Erie Cathedral Prep, and we've got CB West. They played the most phenomenal ending a year ago, where they blocked a punt and ended up winning 14-13. How does West, Mike Pettin's not around, Joe, but, with Mike Carey, the beat goes on.
Here's a big stat for you. 34 seasons and only 42 losses. I want to say that again. 34 years and 42 losses. CB West does not lose. They're not going to lose this weekend.
Okay, you think that that they're just really rolled out. You told me yesterday, Jeff, that you think out of all the great teams, and you just talked about 39 losses in their entire school history, you think this is the best one you've seen.
I defer right to Joe Heyer. Joe Heyer, this is probably one of the best teams that Central Bucks West has put on the field ever.
Yeah, guys, and to answer your question there a moment ago, speaking of the coaching situation, Mike Pettin through all those years, guiding things, but it's been Mike Carey that is alongside of him. He played for some of those undefeated teams back in the early 70s, went on to play at Pitt, was actually the center for Tony Dorsett at Pitt, then came right back from college to coach with Pettin. He's been coaching with him for about 23 seasons. The last 5 or 6, he was called the associate head coach, so he's really been, accustomed to this program for a long amount of time. He's been kind of the defensive mastermind, but what's really surprising this year is Mike Carey has come in. Now he's got his hands on the offense, and the offense has been very surprising at times this season. We're accustomed to seeing CB West just blow people off the football in that big, powerful running game, but what's been the key, the win over Downingtown a couple weeks back, was the passing game. And Mike Oriel, starting quarterback, is, I think, 42-0 as a starting quarterback at CB West, and I think that's been the key. Mike Carey not afraid to open things up offensively.
Doyle Dietz, there's a guy out here that can answer this question. It's got to be you. To me, I think we got 3 mini dynasties going here. You got CB West, you got Southern Columbia in single A, and Mount Carmel in double A. How do dynasties create, and how do they stay that way from what you've been able to see, especially with Southern Columbia and Mount Carmel part of your coverage area?
Well, it's the same across the board. It's hard work, it's weight room, it's kids willing to make a commitment 12 months a year, even if they're involved in other sports. Winning breeds winning. You talk to the kids at Southern Columbia, they have kids with a mindset. You can talk to 12-year-old kids, and they'll tell you, I want to be a guard. I mean, really, that's the mindset, of the younger brothers. Southern Columbia gets a lot of, going back to Jerry Marks and before that, Jay Drumheller, the running backs. But the key is they have kids that actually like being offensive linemen. And, of course, at Mount Carmel, had we had state playoffs in the 60s, we would have been talking about Mount Carmel and some of these other programs. the family, it just goes on. You know, this is the end of the beaches now at Mount Carmel, but there's plenty of cousins and relatives and people like that that are related, that it just continues. It just continues. It's becomes a generational thing. And of course, the big thing with Southern Columbia, some of us that have been doing this a little longer than we care to remember. You know, there was a time when Southern Columbia was one of the state's longest losing streaks, and that's certainly long forgotten. You know, Jim Roth comes in with a 17th year, and he's like 193 and 37, and 10 straight district titles. So, you know, everybody wants to see immediate improvement and gratification. It took them a little while to get that program going. They're a rural school district,
exactly.
But they sure like winning football games.
All right, real quick, I got about, Eric, give me about 2 extra minutes in this particular window. Let's take it to about 44 if we can for our radio audience. I'm going to get some predictions here while I have all of you. Darren, let's start with you, Jeff.
Yes.
Southern Columbia, and they're going up in the first game. How do you see them doing it here against Rochester?
You know, I'm going to make this nice and easy for you, and I know I'm going to upset a lot of people, but I'm looking for a total East sweep.
Oh, okay.
Total East sweep. I'm very confident. We worked the Eastern offices long and hard hours, and we've seen what's going on. And I lay the gauntlet now to Western Pennsylvania, NSNSports.com. We will walk home with 4 crowns.
All right, let's go to Joe Heyer with WMPV Radio in Lansdale. Of course, they've been doing Central Bucks West all year long. You emphatically say that'll be their night again for number 4 in a row, number 60 in a row. Their last loss, 1996 to Plymouth Whitemarsh. It's just unbelievable. The numbers are staggering. They going to get it done a second time in a rematch here, Joe?
I'll bet any one of your listeners a pizza that Central Bucks West wins by 2 touchdowns. I will also predict, not guarantee, I guarantee a CB West victory. You can mark that in stone. I will predict a clean sweep by the East and definitely a Strathaven victory in the state finals, and it'll be sweet revenge as CB West is ranked number 2 in the state the entire year to Erie Cathedral Prep, which I think was a huge injustice, and so finally CB West will get their just due.
Jed, I just got to tell you, Joe Heyer has always had a confidence problem. So you see
I can tell
there.
he's holding out on a limb. Let's go to Doyle Dietz right now. Southern Columbia, Mount Carmel. Is this Southern's year to finally break through after so much heartbreak after winning the first one in '94? I can't believe
this, but in my picks last week in the anthracite section, I picked an East sweep. I feel I've already seen the Class AAA state championship game, and that was Strathaven 14, Berwick 7.
Okay.
Southern Columbia, I feel this is their best team. Forget the 2 losses. The undefeated state championship team did not play anybody close like a Mount Carmel or Selinsgrove, the 2 teams they lost to. I feel, too, that Mount Carmel and CB West, I look at those 2 games as perhaps being the 2 most competitive, but because of the programs we're talking about, I feel that Mount Carmel and CB West finds a way to win.
All right, so this will be their year. Real quick, when was the last loss for Southern Columbia against a single-A opponent? Do you know that right off, Doyle? Or is that in your column tomorrow?
Well, in the state, you mean other than state championship games?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was just curious if there was one in the regular season. Or do I have to...
I think Tri-Valley might have beaten them back in the Eastern Conference playoff days, back when they were going. I don't remember. I don't remember the last A team that's beaten them.
All right.
I have it, obviously, but I'd have to look it up. I have a feeling it might have been Tri-Valley back in the Eastern Conference playoff days.
Doyle, I'll look for you this weekend. Joe Heyer, I'll look for you as well. Thank you, gentlemen, both of you. There's some insight. Thank you, Jeff Nolan with Nauticom. I'm taking a radio time out here, and we're going to stick around. I got Kevin Stumpf coming over, who's the general manager here of the Hershey Park Stadium. So
you're listening to Speaking of Sports. Reach out toll-free, 888-355.
So we're going to stay for a television audience. I see Kevin over there. Just want to remind everybody that the session tickets, they're truly storied programs this state has to offer. You've heard of Sean Gilbert. I know you've heard of Mike Ditka, Ty Law, who's a Pro Bowl cornerback with the New England Patriots. That's just scratching the surface about who's been through the Aliquippa doors. And then the main event, I mean, let's face it, you got 2 top 10 teams. You got Erie Cathedral Prep going up against Central Bucks West. In the ending last year, CB West won their 45th in a row. They had to block a punt with 2 minutes left to win at 14-13. And there's many, I think, on that field as 11 or 12 guys that are going to play for free at the next level. Scholarships. Kevin Stump is the general manager with the Hershey Park Arena, the Hershey Park Stadium. How you doing?
Good, Jed.
Good.
To see you. Thank you.
Everybody's going to be asking Kevin now. They were getting snow, I guess, in the forecast, an inch or two.
Knock on wood. You know, I'm still holding.
60 in a row. Their last loss, round one of the District 1 play, 1996. They've won everything since. And they've been an absolute knockout here, especially 2 years ago when they blew out Newcastle. Last year got a little bit tougher. Erie Cathedral Prep comes in here. They're the number 5 team in the country. And we're going to have Phil Gross later this hour with Blue and White Illustrated and G&W Recruiting, and he's going to tell us why they've got 10 or 11 kids who are D1 and maybe one of the top players in the country in defensive lineman Charles Rush. Does he have Nagy? Is he with us? All right, welcome everybody back. Speaking of sports, and also on the Pennsylvania Cable Network, this week's home on television for the PIAA Football Championships. And also, it's great to be working on the World Wide Web with our friends at PennLive.com. And we're doing a Speaking of Sports fan poll today, and we hope you log on to PennLive.com. Vote for your pick as Pennsylvania's top high school football team, pound for pound. Choose from Aliquippa, Central Bucks West, Erie Cathedral Prep, Mount Carmel, Rochester, Southern Columbia, Strathaven, or West Allegheny. They're the final 8. And just log on to PennLive.com. And also, if you're not near a television and you're just kind of dotting, they're going to have all the webcast action as well. My good friend Brad Sparsis, Ford Chapman, and Jim Contafio, the head coach at Wilson. Let's go to Chris Nagy right now with the Shamokin News item. Chris, good afternoon to you. How you doing today?
Pretty good, Jed. How's yourself?
Super. Let's talk a little bit. Southern Columbia roaring in here. They had to beat a tough Steel High team in the PIAA quarters, 36-26. And I don't know what kind of pedal they hit last week, but it must have stuck to the floor and blowing out Lackawanna Trail 56-6. Is this the best Southern team that Jim Roth takes here to Chocolatetown coming up on the Friday afternoon game?
It's comparable to the '94 team that won the state title.
Okay.
Very comparable.
How is it? Go ahead and talk to me a little bit about how you think they compare and where they might be a little bit different as well.
Well, this team, both teams had very good quarterbacks. You had Osavala on the '94 team. You have Matt Caskey on this team. Matt Caskey has shattered almost every record at Southern Columbia when it comes to passing or as a running quarterback. He's thrown for 1,900 yards, 22 TDs, and the amazing thing is he's only had 8 interceptions so far this year.
Just 8 interceptions, and of course Mount Carmel is in this thing. We've got Bloomsburg in the national championship game against Delta State. And what about the Veach family Saturday? What are they going to do? Brett Veach, who of course was a mainstay on the '94-'96 state title teams of Mount Carmel. Younger brother John, who's just putting up numbers that are just absolutely astounding, is going to play Saturday in the state championship game. And Brett, of course, with the University of Delaware now under Tubby Raymond running the wing T. And they're playing Georgia Southern in the 1AA national semifinals Saturday. Is the Veach family splitting up, or how are they going to get that done?
Well, I think the Veach family's going to be with John, but somebody's going to be at home on a cell phone close to a radio or a TV. That's how they normally do it. Either that or maybe Grandpa will go down and see Brett.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's talk a little bit about John Veach right now, who's, of course, being recruited. I know he's got a visit slated for Penn State at this particular point in time. And he's got, I think, he's one of 5 backs ever to go over 7,000 yards in the state. The last 2, last year, you had Mike Vernillo at Fort Cherry. The year before that, James Mungro at East Stroudsburg. How good is this young man, in your opinion? Is he one of the really top guys you've ever seen in that part of the state right now, ever?
Yes, and to put him historically, he's now the #1 rusher among Carmel. And you go back, you have all the Diminick brothers. You have John's brother Brett. I mean, to put him above the records of Gary Diminick, who played on a national championship team at Notre Dame, and whose records everybody thought was untouchable. And now to have him come in over 2,700 yards this year, and amazingly 39 touchdowns on the ground. He just sees the field so well. He has that extra burst of speed. One of the best games he played was against in the PIAA quarterfinals, and just awesome burst of speed. Once he hits the hole, he's gone, and you just can't arm tackle John Veach.
Right, he's got those type of shifty hips, and you're right. You can't swing your arm like a gate. You just run right through that a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about their narrow, I don't know if you call it a narrow escape, but, I mean, they had to have a heck of a goal line stand against Lakeland, and really a pick'em game late fourth quarter, and then Veach broke it open and sealed the deal with a 92-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, that was right after the goal.
13, and delighted to bring in Mike Silsky of the Doylestown Intelligent all the time in Doylestown. Mike, good afternoon to you. Delighted to have you with us. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Jed. How are you?
Good. And tell me about the Buck story in Downingtown. What is behind all of this? Not that this team needed any motivation at all, but I was away for the Thanksgiving holiday, and I came back, and my eyes popped out of my head when I looked. 39-14. Against a pretty good-looking Downingtown team here about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, well, there is a Buck story there. You're right. What happened was apparently there was a dead deer left on the CB West practice field on the Wednesday leading up to the West Downingtown game. Apparently there was some sort of note attached to the deer saying that Downingtown, was going to rule District 1 and all these sorts of things, and CB West's winning streak was going to end. It was never really clear who put the deer there. Some people thought, obviously some really rabid Downingtown rooter drove all the way up from Chester County to Bucks County to leave the deer there, and I think even more people suspected somebody affiliated with the West program left it there to try to, kind of serve as a self-motivating thing for the kids of CB West. Whoever left it there, it worked, because West came out and up until that time played what was clearly its best game of the season. They were up 16-0 on Downingtown, within the first 8 minutes of the game. Pretty much shut down Downingtown's passing game, allowed Mike Raschuti, the really good tailback from Downingtown, to get some yards, but Downingtown really wasn't able to do anything moving the ball through the air against West, and West pretty much did whatever it wanted with Downingtown. It was a very impressive performance.
Well, no question. And also, looking at the numbers on this winning streak are absolutely staggering. Go back to a year ago. How improbable that victory against Erie Cathedral Prep, where they walked in and Andrew Elsing blocked the punt late, in the most unbelievable finish of a championship game that you're ever going to see. And Ed Hinkle, who's going to be back at quarterback for Erie Prep, I mean, how big was that a year ago? I know you were here.
That was unbelievable. I mean, when you consider the fact that their top offensive weapon last year, Dustin Paciotti, got only 4 carries before he sprains his ankle and leaves the game. Their 2 other best running backs, Phil DiGiacomo and Dave Camburn, both of whom are back this season, were injured. Camburn played most of the game before spraining his ankle and leaving, and DiGiacomo had a bad back and maybe got 2 or 3 carries in the entire game. So they were down to using Bob Warden, who's now a starter at tailback this year, but last year he was on basically the JV squad and he knew about 2 varsity plays. He could run left and he could run right, and that was about it. The fact that they were able to win that game was just remarkable. And Mike Pettin, who obviously retired in January, talks about that game often and brings up the name of an assistant coach named Bill Tesno, who's been with the program for several years. And apparently Coach Tesno told Pettin when Hinkle lined up for that final punt, hey, we can get in there and block this kick, and we can do it. The kid's been hitting them low all night, and we can get in there and block it, and so they did. Like you said, it was just a remarkable game. Certainly, one of the finest football games I've seen, period, whether you're talking about high school, college, or even the NFL.
And I know Mike Mishler, if he had to do it over again, it didn't cross my mind either on the television thing, so I'm certainly not second-guessing, but I guess in retrospect, hindsight's 20/20. If he takes a safety back there and then kicks with no pressure, might have been rough for CB West considering the wind and the conditions of a year ago,
It might have been, but at the same time, you have to remember that West had just gone right down the field to get in deep in the Erie territory. Now, they weren't able to score, and they turned the ball over on downs and then were able to stop Erie to force that punt. But I got to think that was on Mishler's mind as well. And to be honest, in a situation like that, I'm not sure it's so improbable. The idea that the kid's Elsing's going to fly in there and block the punt and then recover it for a touchdown. I think you can kind of forgive Mishler for not, taking the safety and playing it really safe.
As I said, it never even crossed my mind. You get so involved in the game itself. How good? What about this current edition? I've asked everybody that covers them on a regular basis, and this is Mike Selsky with the Doylestown Intelligencer. Is this the best West team you've seen in a while, or where would you rank this? Is it depending on outcome Saturday night?
Well, I think the '98 team, the one that really destroyed Newcastle 56-7 in the state title game, was not only the best West team of all time. It was one of the best high school football teams, I think, in the nation. The West's offensive lines are always so well coached, and that line had more size and skill than any line Pettinen and current coach Mike Carey have ever had. They had a Division I fullback in Pachotti. They had a quarterback in Oriole who was only a sophomore then, but has gone on to become a Division I or Division I AA prospect. That team was the best West team I think anyone's ever seen. This year's team is a little bit different from the teams that West has put out there the last couple of years. It's probably most similar to their 1991 state championship team in terms of its very heavy in skill talent between Oriole, Phil DiGiacomo, David Camburn, junior running back James West, Bob Warden. They have a big play wide receiver in Zach Ingram, who averages more than 22 yards a catch. They are very fast on defense. It's not a grind you down, fullback-centered offense like we've seen the last couple of years with Pachotti and in '97 with Dave Armstrong. It's a little bit different, but just as effective. I mean, they're averaging 42 points a game. They had a stretch where they scored at least 49 points in 5 straight games. They're hitting on all cylinders right now. They took apart Downingtown. They played very well against a very good Bethlehem Catholic team and went up against them man for man in terms of speed. Bethlehem Catholic had a very fast running back in Eddie Scipio, a very tall, lean, quick wide receiver in John Deezer, and West went toe-to-toe with them in terms of speed. So, like I said, it's a little bit different West team from the last couple of years, but just as effective.
All right, Mike Selsky with the Doylestown Intelligencer for radio. We're going to be back with more after this. And television, we're staying. We got a question. PennLive.com, right here. It's a website that is going to have exclusive coverage this week out of the PIAA Football Championships. And we're asking a question. Who do you think is the pound for pound the best team out of all up against Central Bucks West, a team that has won 59 games in a row? And as soon as we're back here momentarily, we are going to be joined by John Lawn of the Delaware County Times to talk about Strathaven and exactly find out, have they been underrated a little bit by a lot of the pundits around the state all year long? Well, we're going to find out. Berwick was the #1 team, I know, with the Pennsylvania football news throughout much of the year, but Strathaven took Berwick out in the quarters by a final of 14-7. So we're going to talk about Strathaven here in a little while, a team that features enormous experience, especially on the defensive side of the football. For everybody that's listening, you can join and participate on the World Wide Web today at PennLive.com. We're asking our fan question, a Speaking of Sports fan poll today. Who's Pennsylvania's top high school football team, pound for pound? Your chance to vote out of the 8 teams that are here. Aliquippa, Central Bucks West, Erie Cathedral Prep, Mount Carmel, Rochester, Southern Columbia, Strathaven, or West Allegheny at PennLive.com. Hear the music in the background. We were welcoming our radio audience back at this particular point in time, and also everybody that's joining in the World Wide Web. We have a chat session going as well at PennLive.com, and we have one question already about who the top college recruits playing in these 4 games. Well, just stay here. We will answer those questions for you with, I think, maybe one of the more astute of AAA championship game. This team.
Great. How are you doing?
All right. Phil, by the way, will not get any sleep between now and 3 and the like. Phil,
I'll tell you, it's been a real zoo, but I think the people that go down and see the 4 championship games in Hershey this weekend on Friday and Saturday are going to see some outstanding seniors, but they're also going to see some future really good players that are only juniors on some of these football teams. And when you look at the rosters, you get a clear understanding of why these teams are where they are.
Phil, talk to me a little bit about some of the blue-collar guys. Charles Rush, I know, is going to start his, CUSA tour at UCLA the week after this. He, of course, is a young man who plays for Erie Cathedral Prep. You had him on your sophomore, junior list to watch. Is it going to come down to Pitt or Penn State as far as Charles Rush goes at Erie Prep?
Well, when I talked with Mike Mishler, the head football coach there, I think that's what it's going to come down to. But he actually has 6 visits set up. He's going to make his a visit to Pitt as an unofficial visit on December the 13th. But as soon as the championship game is over on December the 9th, when they go out, the very next day he's getting on a plane and heading to Miami. And he's going to visit Miami from December 10th to December 12th. He's going to come back, stop off, and see Pitt. Then he's going to get on a plane and go out and see UCLA on December the 15th. Then it's my understanding he's going to go to Michigan on January the 5th, Penn State on January the 12th, and then to Notre Dame probably on January the 19th.
Got a question here about how many Division I recruits are playing at Erie Prep right now. There's Dale Williams, I know, and a few others. What have you been able to figure out as far as Prep right now as to where they stand on the radar screen as far as in your world?
I think there's no doubt that they deserve their top. I think the last time I looked in USA Today, they were in the top 5.
Yeah, they're 5th.
They struggled a little bit against Altoona, but I think that was them overlooking the Altoona situation because they had played them earlier in the season and beat them 46-10 or something like that at Mansion Park in Altoona. But they have 8 legitimate, at least, Division 1A prospects, and they have an outstanding junior running back named Jawan Walker. Is a people should look at. He didn't play the first 3 or 4 games of the season because there was a problem there, and he was suspended from the football team. He got everything straightened out, and he's come back and run for almost 800 yards in the second half of the season. And a lot of people think he's going to be one of the best running back prospects next year in the state of Pennsylvania.
All right, let me go. What about Dale Williams? They're fine two-way tackle and plays some defense as well. He's kind of hopping up here late, isn't he?
Yeah, a lot of people are starting to take interest in him. He's 6'7". He's about 285 to 295. He was real tall. He was a little bit. Didn't have great balance last year, but he's improved himself a whole lot. Pitt, I know, is very, very interested. Ohio State's looking at him. Even I heard that Tom Bradley from Penn State's now coming back to take a second look at him. And I think he's going to probably play on the offensive line, in my opinion, once he gets to the college level.
Central Bucks West, let's just soundbite this all the way through, Phil, real quick. CB West is the other side. You know, we've heard about Dave Armstrong. He went to Michigan. Dustin Pisciotti the last few years. He went to the University of Pittsburgh. And, of course, he had Ben Carver, I know, is at the University of Virginia from 2 years ago. And you go back to even the early 90s. Rob Sweat went to Michigan. But why a team with this much success not having like 7 or 8 D1 guys a year?
Well, you want to know something? Mike Pettin, a long, long way back, a man I respect a whole lot, and done such a marvelous job at Central Bucks West. For you to have a continual success at a program at the high school level year after year after year, you must develop a system, and you must utilize that system down to your Pee Wee leagues and leagues all over your local area. And people become indoctrinated in the way he does things. And it's very, very similar to what they do at Berwick. That's why they've had such long-standing success. They have 1 or 2 really good prospects a year that maybe go on to the Division 1A level, but they don't have 5, 6, 7, 8 like an Erie Cathedral Prep has this year. But they're a whole outfit from down the way that Mike Pettin has set it up. They're indoctrinated in the system. Everyone understands it. They're extremely well taught in the fundamentals. They rarely make mental mistakes on the football field, and they just know how to execute what they're doing. And that's the way, the number one reason why you have success year after year after year in a particular program.
Let's go to the AAA. I know John Mulhern, I believe, is verbal to the University of Delaware. Mike
CB West up simply because they had pounded Downingtown 39-14. They beat a very solid Bethlehem Catholic team 27-12. Prep really squeezed by Altoona, and that was a game that I understand. I didn't see that game. I was at the WPIAA Championships, but we listened to it on the Nauticom Sports over the computer, and it was a game that everyone felt that Altoona really could have and maybe should have won that game.
Well, it was, I think, looking at it, just kind of get everybody up to date that has not heard. Obviously, this is going to be a talking point for us on the television broadcast. It's a 27-20 win in double overtime. Prep trailed 13-6 with 1:43 left, and apparently Mike Mishler wanted his team to allow them to score, similar to what Mike Holmgren did a few Super Bowls ago when he was head coach at Green Bay. Let Denver score, let's try and get the ball back with time. And Tim Dance, well, he lived up to his name, took the kickoff back 85 yards after Altoona missed a key conversion. It could have given them an 8-point lead. They hit it, game tied, and then overtime. They had a 4th and 3 to send it to double overtime. So, I mean, they were on the bubble the whole night.
They were, and you know, you can always second guess, and hindsight's 20/20, and it's a lot easier. It's easy for everyone to sit back here and say, well, Altoona coach should have taken a knee, but you know, in the heat of the battle, and it was really amazing because I had asked 6 different coaches their opinions of this, and all 6 said he did the right thing to score. It just so happened they did not convert. The extra point was blocked, but he still had a 7-point lead. He did squib kick the ball to Dance, but you know, I guess he squibbed it a little bit too hard, and he picked it up and went 85 yards.
That stuff happened. I mean, it's similar to what they did with Mike Mishler last year. It's, you know, it's the era of second guessing, right? 20/20 hindsight, you know, after the play. But, you know, electing to not go for 2. And this is something I just boom right over my head when I was on. I'm all in the excitement of the game when Elsing blocks the Hinkle punt, and they win 14-13. But, you know, we've had people on, you know, West was moving the ball, and there's no guarantees that, you know, that was going to hold.
In the District 6 championship game, there was a similar situation with Wimber. Wimber was winning 7-0 over Bishop Carroll. They had the punt from inside their 10-yard line, and a lot of people said the same thing. He should have taken a safety. Well, he did not take the safety. He kicked it out. Bishop Carroll came down and scored. If he would have taken a safety, he would have lost the game 9-7.
All right, we're welcoming back our radio audience, and again, we welcome everybody on the World Wide Web as well at PennLive.com, and I invite you into the fan forums, and also take our Speaking of Sports poll, and also let us know what you think, too, of the television coverage over the weekend. And PCN, I know, has their own website. I believe it's PCNTV.com. Am I right about that, gang? And make sure you get in there as the home of champions, PIAA Championships for television, and I feel privileged, as always, to be part of this, Bob Kraut and the entire crew, just fabulous, Brad Hammer and everybody. We're going to take some, well, let's just notebook this thing a little bit.
Sure.
Let's go to single A right now. I got a question online here. How much of a plus has Nick Chickatano been to Southern Columbia? His dad was let go as head coach at Shamokin, so he transfers in. Obviously, you don't get an impact guy like this and not benefit. Jim Roth has used him well.
Very well. Matter of fact, I still feel that Jim Roth would have been there regardless, but having Nate Chickatano just made it a lot easier for him. He had a very good running back in Nate Richard to begin with, but Chickatano is a force. He's a big, strong, fast kid. He led the team in scoring, and that had to help him, no question whatsoever.
Yeah, he's playing with a sprained ankle, but Doyle Dietz with the Reading Eagle Times says he'll play on tomorrow. I tend to agree with him, but you know, Matt Caskey is a great baseball prospect. See, I think this is the most balance that Southern Columbia has had, run and throw. And I really think, you know, Conahan, the tight end, is a big factor in this game because of his ability to stress out the coverage situation in the middle of the field on their linebackers.
In our latest issue of the Pennsylvania Football News, a lot of the writers and staff people made predictions. We do this every year round. Sure. And I felt in my prediction that Conahan was going to be the difference in the game. Caskey is a very good passer, but he's an exceptional runner. But I still feel with Conahan there, that gives them just a little bit more offense than Rochester has. Rochester's more of a running game, and Southern just brings more balance to the table, I think, and I think that gives them an edge. Although Rochester's strong defensively, but the Southern offense gives them an edge.
But if Rochester gets the running game rolling with Kirby Griffin and Jermaine Moy, they're in this baby the whole way. Problem is that they fall down by more than 2 scores, meaning like a 10-point deficit where they got to get 2 different scores. They were 0 for 2 with 1 intercepted in the Western Final last week in their 27-3 win against Sharpsville. Their defense made sure that stat was unnecessary, but you got to think they're gonna have to do something in the air to win this baby.
Journal.